Hi everyone, my name is Kevin. I'm the host of Paranoid Founders, and this show is brought to you by Contingent, a company that specializes in business insurance. Today we're super lucky to have Eric, COO and co-founder of Firmus, a cybersecurity company. We're excited to have Eric here to talk about cybersecurity. Eric, I would like to get you to introduce yourself a little bit and talk about your company too.
Thanks, Kevin, for having me today. So, cybersecurity is certainly interesting topics today. With the host of breaches we always hear in the market, I run Firmus. Myself and my business partner, we started Firmus about 16 years back, and we only do cybersecurity.
I love meeting business owners that have been in the business for decades and for yourself, 16 years. There's so much to dig into. Please tell us more.
From the start, it's not so smooth because no one bothers about cybersecurity 16 years ago. And today is a totally different story, right? And we are blessed that way because the company being around for 16 years, we really established ourselves in the market. We've been doing cyber for longer than many other companies in Malaysia. And that's really helped us.
That's great. What I understand from our first conversation, you talked a little bit about your first venture, which was eCorp, starting with eCorp in 2001 up to 2008. And then from 2008, that was when Firmus was founded. Probably some backstory there on how that transition. I would love to learn more. But the earliest success of the company was you established yourself as a leader in doing penetration testing and cybersecurity assessment, and also with your CREST accreditation. We can talk more about that. You've won multiple awards, Cybersecurity Company of the Year, and your expansion with partnerships with companies like Vectra, an AI-powered cybersecurity company. In 2023, you got your ISO 27001 certification. One of the first companies in Malaysia to secure it, 16 years. How do you feel about building this business for so long?
We're working in a company that distributed IT products, right? They were distributing security products back then in the late 90s, and it was a hard sell. People were concerned with just getting connectivity. You tell them firewall, you tell them security. No, they're not going to bother. It's just too difficult. The awareness wasn't there back then. In the early days, we learned the lesson that most people will not be willing to invest on security until they have an incident, unfortunately. And to today, this stands true for many organizations.
So did you cater your value propositions or your offerings according to the market needs at that time? One thing I learned about being a business owner as well is changing behavior is hard, super hard. Because if you were to continue selling penetration testing in the 90s and early 2000s, what traction would you have gotten, right?
When we started the business in 2008, we weren't new to the industry anymore. Before we started, we already knew the target markets we will be targeting. Back then in Malaysia, and even up to today, cybersecurity is a very compliance-driven business. Most organizations, unless there are regulations to compel them to adopt cybersecurity, they'll just make do with what they have, or until they have an unfortunate incident, then it's a knee-jerk reaction to invest in cybersecurity. So from WeBank in those early days, our target market has always been the financial sectors. Bank Negara has been very forward-thinking, one of the best regulators that we worked with. Even way back in the early 2000s, they recognized the needs for cybersecurity. Today, the financial sectors are very well prepared. They are being audited multiple times a year to ensure they comply and adopt what's necessary to protect the public in terms of cybersecurity.
How was your first few years in Firmus? Because obviously, when you were in Firmus, you already had the connections and the network. And to these FIs, they will look at you and ask, how established are you in the early days?
We were very fortunate when we started Firmus that a lot of these relationships recognized myself and my CEO, Alan, and the trust was already there. They knew over the last 8 years of working with us that we do what we say we will do.
Understand.
And we were not a fly-by-night kind of business. And they fortunately gave us an opportunity. We always start small, just a couple of guys, and we build from there.
That's great. I think relationship is one of those things that probably these days, as we think about building tech businesses, people tend to forget the importance of it. What I really admire about how you've been building this business for so many years is that you take a very long-term view. For a business like yours, where it depends on how mature is the internet economy, right? Like in the early days, the internet economy was still so immature. But you guys just stuck by it, focus on what you can deliver. So my thoughts are, in the early days of Firmus, how do you guys think about revenue? How do you guys think about getting a consistent revenue stream? Cybersecurity is very reactive. There's no immediate crisis. And then while there is no crisis, you need to pitch your preventive measures. How do you balance your sales pitch to these customers and have some predictability in terms of your revenue?
So I would say that it's right what you mentioned, that cybersecurity can be reactive. Fortunately, the market that we started the business targeting is more proactive because they were regulated under a central bank that required them to take a very proactive view and a risk management approach when it comes to cybersecurity.
Yeah.
This meant that we no longer needed to pitch the benefits of adopting cybersecurity to this market.
Yeah.
They knew what needed to be done, but rather we needed to convince them that we are able to actually deliver and support compliance requirements. When the business started, to be frank, mostly the financial sectors and the larger MNCs would only be the one that are more proactive when it comes to cyber. Even today, there are many listed organizations who may not have that same level of awareness when it comes to cybersecurity as compared to the financial sectors.
Great. Right. I want to talk about Malaysia cybersecurity. Talking about competition, there were many other competitors in cybersecurity.
Yes.
I'm not sure what are the barriers to entry, whether it's difficult to just start up a cybersecurity firm, and how did you, in the early days, manage competition, and what was your edge, other than what you've shared, which is relationship and focusing on compliance?
So I would say that in every industry, there are competitors. We were fortunate that when we started, there were only a handful of companies doing this business. But back then, the market was very small. Today, I think there are so many other new startups, new companies that want to participate in this industry, and which I fully encourage, because I personally think that in the industry, there's no one company can do everything. If you look at the hacking community today, right, hackers are actually collaborating, right? They are working together. And if we are on the other side trying to defend, and we are too busy competing with each other rather than working together, right?
Interesting.
Then I think we really put ourselves at a disadvantage.
That's true. I didn't think about it that way though. If hackers are working together to come up with solution to...
They even run tenders.
How did you know about that?
This is all well documented, well known in among the cybersecurity.
It's so interesting. I don't know how the first few years of Firmus like, because most startups don't go past 5 years. The failure rate of startups in the first 5 years is like 90%. So what was that financial turning point for you that you realized, okay, we just have to power through these first 5 years? And what do you do to manage the early days of your costs, your engineers, paying them? I'm sure they were not cheap. And then what was the turning point for you that like, okay, you know what, we have something and we can now scale?
Predominantly, we are still a very service-based company, and scaling is always a challenge for a company that relies on people to provide delivery of services. We have also been well trained in our previous company. We always had very good, prudent practices in the organization, whether it comes to finances or operations and the way we do the business. In the old days, people don't pay staff EPF lah, they deduct unpaid salaries and stuff like that. So from day one, when we started the business, we paid all the employees first, we paid all the suppliers first, and we paid ourselves last. But I always was very grateful for the opportunities our customers gave us and our suppliers who gave us credit terms when we started the business. It was all because of the trust and relationships we built up prior.
Yeah, I understand. And I was just looking at your website and the list of services that you have. What would you say are the services that contribute a large part to your business?
If you see the long list of services and offerings, it was never like that from day one. So one of the interesting things about our industry is that we have to keep innovating. We have to keep providing what the market needs. This is critical, because if we are only doing what we started to do 16 years ago, today we are gone, right? And to your next question, in terms of revenue drivers, I think we are one of the more balanced pure play cybersecurity firms in Malaysia today. We have a good balance between services and solutions to our clients. And it's a very healthy split, maybe 60-40. And that has enabled us to pull our skill sets from different parts of the organization to provide a proper solution with a mixture of people, processes, and technologies.
If you don't mind me digging a bit on the solution side, what are some of the examples of recently innovated products that you have?
Everyone's talking about AI, machine learning, right? Hackers also adopt AI and machine learning to hack now these days. For us on the other side, we also leverage this technology as best we can. We are actually one of the early adopters and resellers for a lot of these AI-based security solutions like CrowdStrike, Vectra, among others. There are so many today. I always want to iterate, we are a service-based organization. We can use these tools to provide services. We can also resell these tools for customers who have a bit more cybersecurity maturity and resource, and they can run it themselves with the right training. So it's really a two-way of doing it. I can either sell you the solution, or I can use the solution and use it as a service for you.
Yeah.
But again, tools are just tools. At the end of the day, it is the person who wields the tools, how they wield the tools and make the difference.
Yeah.
So a lot of time, we also don't restrict ourselves to just one tool or two tools. We have a myriad of tools, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes we can even leverage the tool sets that the customer already has invested in. This allows us to get a shorter time to effectiveness and even help our customers save some costs.
That's great. And from a sales perspective, because you're dealing with probably a lot of enterprise size companies, what's your sales cycle? How long does it take for your sales team to close a customer?
Really depends. I need to disclaim. And the reason being is that, so for example, we have deals that can close immediately because the customer is going through a hard time. Most of the time when there is a breach, organizations are unprepared. To be frank, all the time we start work without any order. The objective is really to say, hey, let me try to solve your problem first, and concurrently then we can work out the commercials.
Interesting.
A lot of these referrals are through word of mouth.
I was going to talk about marketing. Word of mouth is one, which means that you've probably stuck by your principles of trust, relationship, and then words get around, and you're probably established. But do you guys do any other marketing?
Yes, I think we are pretty active online marketing.
Okay.
So we do a lot of LinkedIn. I think some of these podcasts, and so it's certainly useful to help get the awareness out in the market.
How has marketing for cybersecurity changed in this recent 3 to 5 years versus prior to that, or prior to COVID, right?
Prior to COVID, I want to tie this back to digital transformation.
Yes.
Right? So prior to COVID, everyone is also talking about digital transformation for years. COVID actually kickstart a lot of these initiatives. Actually drove everyone to immediately jump into it, and when they were still planning for it, taking their time. And with this dash of digital transformations, the requirements for cybersecurity also skyrocketed concurrently. All of a sudden, you didn't need to work in the office anymore. You need to work at home. So can you imagine from a security perspective, as an organization, you got employees working from anywhere now. How do you protect the company's infrastructure and information when the laptop is anywhere, right? So that entailed a transformation. And that transformation brought a big need for cybersecurity.
How did you all feel when all these were happening? Did it feel like,
wow, it was
like that our moment is here?
Actually, when the pandemic started, it was a very scary time for us. I still recall we had just moved to an office, all right, just nicely renovated and everything. And barely a few months after we moved in, MCO is announced, right? So everyone need to work from home. And we also had to go through some transformation internally in terms of how our employees worked. And for a SME like us, back then only just about 40 odd staff. It was also a challenging time, and it was a lot of uncertainties. But I guess everything, there's a silver lining. With the pandemic, it triggered so much transformation and cybersecurity requirements. I feel reserved to say this, but pandemic has been good for business. And I think it's also a positive note, because with what this brought about is that now organizations are more aware about cybersecurity. Governments and large MNCs and whatnot, they're more aware about cybersecurity, and they do what's more required to protect the users, which is the public at large.
Great. I'd like to ask this question, since we're on the topic of revenue, sales, marketing. What are you paranoid about when it comes to this revenue growth?
Paranoid about so many things. You run your own business.
Which is why we named this podcast Paranoid Founders, right?
Well, I mean, as any business owner, it always feels like a house of cards. You build a business and stack the cards carefully over the years, and it's getting bigger, it's getting sizable. But you always feel paranoid. I'm always thinking, hey, what can go wrong, right? And I actively look. And
that's a good sign of COO.
And I actively look for trouble, right? And I ask that, hey, what's wrong? What's wrong? When you tell me what's good, I say that's great. But what's wrong? Business has been growing since 2008. We've not had a year where we did lower than the previous. So for 16 years, it's always been only one direction. But of course, the post-pandemic years has been exceptional. We've double, triple since pre-pandemic easily. Our staff headcount today is more than 100 employees. In fact, during the pandemic, we opened up our Singapore office at the height of the pandemic.
I have a very interesting thing to talk about, but let's cover that during your Singapore story, because I think that's an amazing example of promoting within. So let's talk about that.
If you talk about revenue, of course, what paranoids me is in terms of, for us, we need to always engage the customer, right? We want to hear what's working, what's not working. I always tell my clients, I say, look, we are a people-based company. The things we do are humans. Sometimes there will be gaps. But if you reach out to us, the assurance we give you is that we'll make it work, right? While we are chasing deals, we are chasing numbers from sales, the business development side of things, we also need to ensure that the deals that are already in, we need to be able to deliver them. Right? Nothing is worse than
Unsatisfied,
bad,
dissatisfied.
unhappy customer.
I hear
There are more customers who had a bad experience, they'll talk about you more and share the experience more compared to someone who has a great
No,
experience.
I think a lot of
It's
business
quite
say
common,
that. We
right?
say that too. All it takes is one bad experience to perpetuate to 1,000 people.
Exactly.
But one good experience will not have the same effect.
Yeah, exactly. We work very hard to ensure we are always talking to our customers.
So what do you do? It's a survey, post, feedback.
We try to do a survey, but at the end, if you wait for that, it's sometimes a bit too late.
late.
From the day one, we encourage a lot of engagement, a lot of touch points throughout the project. Even once the order is in, the sales team continue to get involved to a certain extent for certain projects. So they get immediate feedback. Myself, Alan, senior management, we also proactively go out to communicate and engage with customers throughout the project to get their feedback.
That's good. Let's talk about systems. How was growing 40 people to 100 people like when it comes to processes? When was the transition from either Microsoft Excel or Google Sheet to a system like, but in your case, you're a cybersecurity company. So I would think that you would have softwares in place or CRMs in place. But you've gone through the growth of your business. So how did you go from no system to like building something, and how was that experience?
It's all really teamwork. Certainly when we start, we have a lot of Excel sheets and we still have some of those, but whenever possible, we also go through a stage of digitization. We adopt a lot of CRM solutions and collaborative solutions to help minimize a lot of time, right? That is wasted to update each other. From one team, they do a task, they go update the other team. And so we try to, as best we can, adopt systems that reduce this kind of overheads for us.
Yeah, and your business is so time sensitive. When it comes to things like workflow, notification, just talking about your incident response team, how did you build the team from maybe in the early days of handling the first few incidents responses to today? That must have taken some transformation to be faster, quicker, more predictive. How did that transformation take place?
Incident response is something that we take great pride in doing. Unfortunately or fortunately, it's something that we always have active engagements in. That means there's always someone who's been breached. Some may make the news, some may not. And you'll be surprised, many of these are actually not the big banks, not the big organizations, but they are typical medium-sized SMEs whose revenue are very sizable. And for us, we've been doing it for so many years. Our blessing is that we have multiple teams, and if you see, we do things from consulting to security testing, all the way to specialized security solutioning, now even managed services. And when we do the IR, we actually adopt a combination of skill sets and people from across various teams.
IR stands for?
Incident response, right? We actually pull the skill sets from different teams and we come out like a task force to do the incident response. And everyone has a role to play in advocating and conducting certain tasks within the environment.
How did you train your team to do that? I believe this is mainly your domain, right?
Yeah.
Sounds like it's very heavily people driven.
It is.
How do you create that workflow?
I think even when we started to say that, hey, we want to go into this space to do incident response, it was not taken lightly because for a typical incident response engagement, it is a very high pressure environment. Can you imagine an organization already been breached? Things are not running, the board is breathing down your neck. If you're a big company, maybe you got regulators, HQ, everyone is breathing down your neck. IT team is under tremendous pressure to get things up and running again. Their typical knee-jerk reaction I see is that they will just try to restore from whatever backups they could to make sure the systems are up without first ensuring that the environment's been cleansed because they've been attacked, right? And this is one of the big mistakes that many organizations make because they're too urgent to get things running. They didn't take the necessary steps to ensure that the environment was clean from the hacker first.
They will be still vulnerable.
They will spend maybe 80% of the effort the next couple of days just getting systems up and restore from backups, and halfway through, they get hit again. Then
it's like playing chess, isn't it?
so they back to square one. A lot of times when we are in the ground, call us in, we tell them, look, we need your commitment. This is the playbook. This is how we're going to do things. If you follow this, then we can engage. But if you do not follow this, you won't be able to engage. Because I don't want to get involved in a project to do incident response. Things are not done in a proper fashion. They do the restoration first. Actually, if you follow the right steps, restoration is probably step number 5, right? So you got a lot of stuff you need to ensure is clean before you start restoring.
I'm sure you've learned a lot through experiences. Because when you say things like that, it just sounds to me like it's happened before, and then you learn, okay, you know what, in the future, this is the SOP.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you don't mind sharing, just high level, what had gone wrong? Because over here, we do want to get to the nuance, right?
There is a lot of established best practices when it comes to IR and all that. But in the end of the day, the success of an incident response is not just down to the external party like us. It also comes down to the local IT team to cooperatively work with us accordingly. And there were cases where we've been called in a bit late. They were really halfway through restoring, reformatting all their machines. And when we came and said, hey, you are jumping the gun, and they have also not given us the right empowerment. So it was like, okay, you come in, then we are being plugged into a larger restoration project. So when we saw that, we told them, look, this is not how it's supposed to run. And if you do this, you could have some difficulty later. But it was really a bit too far down the road. Unfortunately, they were more than halfway through restoring, and they got hit by another wave of attack, and everything went down again.
And were you guys already engaged at this point, or you already told them this is
We told them this is not right, and we declined to be engaged.
This is so interesting.
It's so difficult, right? In the end of the day, for us, we feel there's a sense of responsibility. If you say, look, I'm going to be engaged to take this project for you, we want to ensure you are successful, and we want to ensure that we can make this project successful for everyone.
Yeah, there are a few things at play here. One is the local IT team, and depending on how large the company is, whether this person is senior or not, there is a sense of tension, because if there is a breach, it means this person is not doing the right job. They will want to make sure that they can fix it. And then number 2 is, if you only be introduced to this company, telling the company to trust you is difficult, which is why when you mentioned, this is a very trust-heavy business. Because I can imagine being in the shoe of whether the management or CEO, and if I had no prior relationship with you, it's hard. So for a client that comes through IR versus a client that is an existing client who had a breach, I'm sure the conversation is very different.
Of course. But in the end of the day, whatever we do is not just what we say, and we justify it with a lot of sound reasoning and experience sharing as well.
The trust with the difference between existing customers breach and an IR breach.
From an engagement perspective, there's not much difference. It's just that if it's an existing customer, then we know the organization better, we know who to call better, we know who's doing what better. That helps get the ball rolling faster. Whether it's a new or existing client, when we do the engagement for the incident response, it's in a similar fashion. Our only ask is that there must be that commitment to the playbook, right? This game plan, we can amend it, but by and large, it's a sound framework that has been established already.
It sounds from an account managing perspective, you would need some level of seniority to handle these conversations.
Yes.
Do you still get quite involved?
Yes, I do. I'm blessed that my management team are all very hands-on people. And myself, if need to, we always engaging with customers, right? To drive certain points home. There are situations where the team gets pushed back because other stakeholders are pushing in the organization. If they need the support, it's so important for the management to jump down into the account and reach out to customers and push through that kind of things that need to be done.
Yeah. I'm sure internally you've adopted some technologies to make your team work more efficiently. What are some of the systems that you all now can't live without?
Can't live without. For me, we recognize the automation, the ease that the system brings. So if you are not populating the system with the right information, or you do not have that kind of discipline instilled within the team in terms of how you use the tools, the systems will not be so effective, right? So in the end, the system is not just another thing we need to do, but it must make sense. So our guys, when they use the system or the tools, It doesn't replace the human. What I'm trying to say that, so we adopt a lot of tools we bring to the customer side to do work on. But if one tool is not available or suitable, we have other tools we can fall back on. A tool is just a tool, and it only helps the person who's running them in getting things done a bit quicker.
Yeah. And what were some of the scaling challenges going from 40 people to 100 over people? There will be some people related, but also like operationally, right?
From early on, we recognized need to hire, so attracting talent was a key concern. Retaining talent was a key concern. And growing the existing team member, giving opportunity to the whole team to take up more responsibilities and grow their careers was no longer seen as nice to have, but just the standard hygiene, right? Talking to the staff and engaging and asking them, hey, what's your career ambition? How do we align your career goals with the goals of the organization, right? And those conversations are constantly being taken place. And that is necessary in order to retain talent. In terms of attracting talent, a lot of people look at Glassdoor. Glassdoor is people who left your organization, and what do they write about your organization after they leave, right?
Not so good review.
Yeah. But we're pretty proud because our Glassdoors are pretty positive. People write good stuff. So I'm still involved in a lot of the interviews, right? At least at one stage or the other, and I ask them, hey, how do you get to know about this opportunity? I say, oh, look, actually, I don't know anyone in Firmus, but I went and read your Glassdoor reviews and they all say good stuff. We've been actively working on culture, having a healthy culture that is sustainable, and also we adopt diversity. In many organizations, you see the bosses are Chinese, the whole company is all Chinese, right? Yeah. Indian or Indian Malay, vice versa, right? So for us, in day one, when we started the business, it was a conscious decision that the distribution of the workforce, we take a very balanced approach, whether in terms of ethnicity or in terms of gender. Yeah. Of course, Malaysia we have 3 main races, right? And we are pretty balanced out on all 3 percentage-wise. That has allowed us to have a very balanced culture. Everyone learns to respect each other's views. We also serve a wider profile of customers, right? And the other aspect is that in terms of gender, I'm a big proponent of gender equality and women empowerment. Right now, we are almost at 1/3 of our workforce, 30%.
That's great. For a company with quite a lot of engineers. Is that the same for your engineers?
Yes, about 85% of my workforce are technical, right? And typically in our industry, IT industry, cybersecurity industry, it's very male-dominated, very male-centric. There are pros and cons. When your organization workforce is too male-dominated, there's a lot of machoism and all that. But we want to balance that. From day one, it was a conscious decision as well to have a more balanced kind of workforce. And with the last few years, everyone talking about ESG, right? We've been practicing this all this while.
That's great.
And that's been very helpful for us in terms of attracting talent, retaining talent as well.
I love to dive deeper into the topic of people because it's always top of mind for most founders or business owners. The thing about running your own business is that when you ask yourself, like, when did I actually transition from starting my own business, doing things on my own to being a people manager? There was a friend of ours who asked her mentor, when will this people issue ever end? And you are a testament to that. 16 years. And I don't know how much of your time is spent thinking about people, hiring people, managing people. I think probably a good majority of the time is.
A good majority of time is that whether these people are in-house or external parties, it's still a very human business, and getting everyone aligned is so key, whether internally or externally.
You talked about core values and you said you're currently looking into that, or rather you're being more intentional about getting people to think about core values.
So when we started the business way back, we asked ourselves, hey, what are the core values we want Firmus to have, right? And after talking among the shareholders, we came up with 3 words only. At the time was just trust, reliable, and care. And
what year was this?
This was 2008 when we started. So it was trust, reliable, and care. These are the 3 core values we espouse, and we hope that the company would adopt in how we treat each other and how we treat our clients as well, or suppliers, anyone we're engaged with. Fast forward 16 years, those 3 values still continue to be the bedrock of our culture, but we have expanded it a little bit more, taken it a bit more detail, give people a bit more understanding in what it means.
Do you define it?
Trust. Yeah, so we define work ethics and practices, espouse these 3 values.
The thing about core values, it's great because you guys have let those values that you initially came up with build its own life. It's hard building a business and setting the tone for culture because it starts from the founders. Then you hire your first hire. And then this first hire may be, in your case, like 30% of the company. And then this person could go on to hire or be part of the hiring process of the rest, and then it takes its own life. So if you don't care for it, or if you're not intentional about it, it could deviate. Like you could start hiring the wrong people.
That's right.
You could make a decision of hiring someone because they're good versus they're the right fit.
Yeah. I always tell my head of people that skill sets you can learn, you can train, you can build. Attitude, it takes much more effort to change that. And it's easier to hire someone with the right attitude, and we don't mind to invest to build the right skill sets. Today, I'm very proud that our organization, we focus a lot on people development actually internally. Every year, we invest a lot to grow our people. We always tell them, look, today you join Firmus, I hope that you work long, but when you decide one day you go to another organization, you would have been much better than you are today in terms of qualification, skill sets, and talents. That makes me proud because I know I've done my job, right? You come in here and then when you left, you're already up there, right? So the organization has done well to grow you. And in the course when you're working with us, your growth has also brought benefits to the organization, right? So, and this is so critical for us.
Has there been anyone who's been with the company from the beginning or has been working for you for more than with you for more than 10 years?
Yes, you'd be surprised. I think besides myself and Dr. Allen, of course, we have people been with us for almost 14 years now.
If I were to ask them, why are you still with Firmus? What do you think they will say?
I hope that they will say they like the environment, culture. I hope they say they like the openness of management and the opportunities we give everyone. Very fair. I feel as an organization, the management team, we conduct ourselves very fairly to everyone in the organization. We've got a guy working with us almost 14 years. We have a few working with us 9 years, 8 years, 7 years.
I'm sure there will be a point in the business where they've been around for long, and then in situations where you may need to bring in more senior hires. And then there's this whole loyalty versus, like, how did you manage that?
So I think we try to prioritize if the existing people can be grown to a more senior role. But of course, we recognize the need when there's a new talent on board that's suitable, they may need to take on a more senior role than someone who's been with me longer. But I think it all comes back down to the engagement, even with the employees, that they understand and they can see where they can also grow working with someone who's more senior and has more experience. And for us, because the company is growing at such a fast rate, there is no lack of opportunities. So today, you've been working with us for a while. There is a new talent that will bring value to the company, and they come in, they may sit a bit higher than you on organization-wise. But that doesn't mean that you no longer go up. If you're ready, there are new opportunities for you. You may start something new in terms of services, and you can drive that as well. So there are no lack of opportunity, I would say, today for our team to grow.
Yeah, that's so key to, as a business owner, if your company can grow, your people can grow, whether financially or their roles, and that's so important. And when it comes to hiring, let's talk a bit about that, because you shared earlier about that being one of your concerns, which is bringing on new talent. How difficult it is right now to hire. These are probably software engineers, right? Or adjacent.
It's a mixed bag. There are people who are not from cybersecurity, but they have the really technical grounds and they want to skew towards cybersecurity career. So we have candidates like that. I would say that hiring is gotten relatively easier for us, also because the market has started to recognize us, our brand as a cybersecurity and our position in the market, our leadership position. And I would say that while we still continue to hire and there's still lots of vacancies, right? So shout out to everyone looking for a position, right, for cybersecurity.
What's the ideal profile then you typically, from an experience, who would be suitable for cybersecurity?
It really depends in which position they're playing and also which department they will be involved in because they're doing different stuff, right? I would say that ideally today, if you're a fresh graduate, you need to be an IT graduate, and there are a lot of degree programs with a major in cybersecurity, especially locally, right? So that's been very helpful to churn out new fresh talent into the market. And we do offer loads of internship to a lot of these pre-university graduates. And subsequently, we do offer them a lot of positions if we find that they are suitable.
And do these engineers or people that you hire need to be familiar with programming languages?
It depends again on the role they need to play, but certainly as part of the interview, there will be technical assessments being conducted as well. It's always a mixed bag when it comes to people. There are candidates who articulate very well, but technically may not be as strong. And vice versa, right? We have great engineers who knows, but put them up to speak, they have their struggles on that as well. So I guess we need to make the best with the resources that we have and support those where we need to support. When there are cases where the engineer, they have all these great ideas and all these great technical documentation they want to share, but they can't articulate that, we support them by getting other resources in the company to help with the articulation. In the organization, we fully encourage all our delivery teams to go for Toastmasters and various other public speaking training to get them exposed to the idea of speaking.
How do you manage sales team, technical team, support team? How is that dynamic? Because I understand companies sometimes have different, I wouldn't say policies, working with engineers, even people in tech, they have a very different way of work. And non-technical would have a different way of work, right? How do you find the right balance for these different departments or profiles to work closely together?
So the good thing in Firmus is that while many departments, we have a couple of delivery teams, each for a particular business unit, and then there's a sales team as well. The great thing is that everyone works really very closely, right? Remember earlier I shared, even once the project started, a lot of organizations, when the sales have gotten the purchase order, they'll just hand it over to the delivery team and that's that. They don't get involved. But for us, the sales team is still very much involved and they still hold a relationship with the customer very closely throughout projects. So they get updates and they know what's happening and they continue to engage with customers. This is just to ensure that our customers' expectation and our delivery team expectation are all on the same page.
That's great. Great. I want to talk about the Singapore expansion because when you shared that to me, I was like, wow, you really trust the people that you bring on board to the extent where you make them business owners or head of a country. Walk me through that experience of your Singapore expansion from a people standpoint, just the high level, because I understand this person was initially an intern.
That's right. We started off our Singapore business at the height of the pandemic in 2020. How it came about is that actually the local shareholders that's running the Singapore business, of course, is majority owned by Firmus in Malaysia. One of them actually started off as an intern in Firmus in Malaysia many years ago. Upon internship, he worked with us a couple of years. After that, he pursued other companies' work, and we still kept in contact. At one point, he went to Singapore to work. He was in Singapore for quite a fair bit of years, and we still contact each other. Every time when I went to Singapore, we'll catch up for a cup of coffee or a meal. One day, he came back and said he wants to come back to Malaysia. And I said, hey, why come back? Like, stay there. It is a great opportunity for you to be your own boss and start up Firmus in Singapore. And that's how it happened. And we are very proud of this because it's a testament on the fact and on how open-minded we are on this. A lot of bosses are not going to say, you go there, you just work. I'm not going to meet you a shareholder and whatnot. But we're really open on that. Kudos to him as well. He's also worked with his heart. And I think the Singapore business has been growing year on year in a very good way, very healthy.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
What are you paranoid about when it comes to people managing 100 over of them?
I wish I can say I'm managing 100 people directly, but it's not, right? We've always recognized the importance of teamwork. Whatever results the organization has achieved is owned by every member of the team. There's no way a person can achieve the kind of results that a group of people working cohesively can. I only want to work with people I can trust, right? But sometimes as the organization grows, you need your middle layer to also manage the people in their team, right? You trust that they are connected to their team members. That may not necessarily always be the case. Sometimes you worry about people making mistakes. Making mistakes is fine. You find out early and then you address it. But sometimes you find out late. Then it's really a lot about damage control.
Yeah, that's the difficult thing about trust. There's a debate that you either give trust or you earn trust, right? Two different school of thought. It's hard. Yeah.
Predominantly, I'm a type of person that want to give trust first. Doesn't mean a lot of people mistake. When you trust someone, you don't care. You can trust someone, empower them, but you still need to see what's happening You need to know what's happening until they've reached a stage where you're comfortable that, look, you can run, you just let me know the outcomes, then everyone can do more and achieve.
That's great. Talking about risk management, you're dealing with a lot of high stakes enterprises when it comes to handling liability. How do you handle sensitive data? How do you manage your liability in case of a breach by your client and you were responsible for preventing those breaches? Tough one, right? Some things are outside of your control. How do you think about that?
We tell a client there's no guarantees. No one can guarantee you anything. The only thing that's guaranteed in life is death and probably taxes, right? As people always say. So we set the right expectations, and by and large, our customers, they already know this. There's no guarantees. To your second question about sensitive information, we typically approach a need-to-know basis when it comes to our engagement. So when typically we do not need access to sensitive information in regards to personal information, staff information, no, we don't need that. Our objective is in terms of securing the environment. So we don't need to access this personal information ourselves, but we need to know how to protect it. And when it comes to, of course, just like any professional kind of organization provides services, issues of negligence that you mentioned, we are not immune to it. And certainly for us, insurance is a tool that we use to mitigate some of this risk. We are a people business. We all read stories about disgruntled employees who pour a pot of coffee on the server before they walked out the door, right? Obviously, those are rare, but it's happened in the world before. Touch wood. Thank God for us, we're still pretty okay. But we do have necessary insurances to mitigate our risk on that.
Understand.
We have yet to make any claims against those insurance.
And cybersecurity insurance to your customers, has it been something that people are talking about now, especially with CrowdStrike, the whole CrowdStrike event on the malware, or is that still going to take some time?
I think the issue of cybersecurity insurance is a great one. I fully advocate clients consider the necessary tools to help them mitigate some of the risks when it comes to a cyber breach. Having said that, I feel adoption risk is not very high.
It's also a trust thing.
It's a trust thing. I think there's the product is also maturing. It's not that mature yet compared to traditional insurance products. How do you assess the premiums? How do you make claims? So many questions come to play. That also is a cost to many organizations. And today, cyber insurance premiums has also gone up with so many cases of breaches. If you ask me, you combine this case of high premium while the product is still maturing and the awareness is still growing, then it becomes a space where maybe adoption can still have more room to grow.
What's next for Firmus? How do you see the next 16 years or to look like for you? It definitely sounds like it's going to go upwards based on the developments of cyber.
I think for us, we don't see 16 years down the road. But I think the next 3 to 5 years, we have solid plans in place when it comes to our growth targets, when it comes to the kind of resources we're going to need to achieve those targets. In the end of the day, those targets should not be the tail that wags the dog. So we always humble and always remember that it's the customers who put us where we are today. I always tell our team, every client, no matter how big or how small, is with us because of one word only, trust. Right? So whatever we do, we must always uphold that to ensure that business continue to grow.
That's great. I think that's the best way to end it. Thank you so much, Eric, for joining me in this show and this conversation. I've learned a lot about cybersecurity and how much it's about people and trust. I really appreciate the time you've spent with me here, and I hope to see you again soon, man.
Thanks, Kevin. I hope the podcast has been useful and that more awareness is into the need for cybersecurity.
And we can put this on your recruitment page to recruit more engineers. Thanks so much, Eric.
Thank you.